Well, okay, let's do a little test video here. First off, I'm filming on the Sony, and I'm using their little action cam and their smart connect, whatever it is that they have. So, but today what I want to talk about is Canon. What the fuck? Come on, seriously. You know, I owned all Canon equipment, and then I packed it all up when they announced the 5D Mark IV, packed it up, and then sold it. And then I went out and I bought Sony. I've got Sony lenses, Sony cameras. I've even got real Sony video cameras. Here, slow motion is this one's party trick. To say that I was pissed off at Canon is an understatement. But then now I have Sony, and everyone's talking about overheating problems and that, and I've started revisiting Canon again. And I'm not saying that I'm going back to Canon, but I do have a new perspective on Canon. And it's all about 4K video, and it's about the usage of the camera. You know, if you want to go and buy a Ferrari, then buying the car is one thing, but you need to be able to afford to maintain the car, put fuel in it, pay for the insurance. And this is a point that I think many people are missing. They strive to buy that high-end camera, but they refuse to spend the money on the accessories that they need to make that camera work for them. In this case, it's memory. In this case, it's a real video board. In this case, it's a real computer. It's a friend of mine today asked me, what do you think of this certain memory card? And it's cheap. And I'm going, fuck cheap, go with Lexar. You know, you buy a 1DX Mark II, and you're so cheap that you're talking about a cheap video card? Come on. A 1DX Mark II, the best camera out there. Go buy yourself a fucking Ferrari and put a Vietnamese scooter engine in it that's been a knockoff by the Chinese, that's got a Honda label on it, that is actually two cockroaches running on a fucking squirrel cage. Now, come on. So, back to things here. The 1DX Mark II is got MPEG, and everyone's complaining about the MPEG. 500 megabits per second is the data transfer rate, but the interesting part is it's intra-frame. Compression does not exist, so that every single shot is a single shot. Sure, it's got a little bit of compression from the JPEG, but the MJPEG is just a wrapper. So I've made a list here about things about the 1DX Mark II. It's weather sealed. There's no cooling fans. It can do 4K at 60 frames a second. Sure, there's a crop. It's not a full frame in video, but okay, what is? If you want to look at Super 35, that is a crop sensor. And don't forget that, you know, there's quite a bit of difference about the way that a DSLR manages a frame and the way a cinema camera manages a frame. You know, DSLR frames were this away, and 35 millimeter in video cameras that we reference to as full frames, they go this away. So quite a bit of difference there. So no overheating. But interesting, Canon's new XC10 line, XC10, XC15, you turn those puppies on, and there's a cooling fan in it. That's right, you heard me right, a cooling fan. The problem with the overheating is not a design problem. The problem is that they are doing very, very high compression to a wrapper, whether it's H.265, XAVCS, they're wrapping this data and compressing it, which is fantastic. You get a huge 4K image on an SD card. But the trade-off is that compression generates heat. The C300 Mark II and the C500, do you know that they cannot, I say this again, Canon Cine lines, C300 Mark II and the 500 cannot record 4K at 60 frames per second internally. But hey, the 1DX Mark II can. Well, as they say in Vietnam, choy oi. So in the Cine lines, they record in XFAVC on the XC10 at 305 megabits per second. Therefore, 500 megabits versus 305 megabits is quite a substantial increase in file size there. Now, again, you're an owner of a 1DX that shoots 4K. You need a big PC. You need a real PC. You buy a 1DX, go buy a new computer also. Get a real video card. Get a life. Even buy, if you need it, a new mouse, one that's got buttons and functions on the side of it to help you support your life. Yep, you can grab stills any place in there because you got 30 or 60 frames stills per second that you can grab. Fantastic. It's got a great battery life, full HD at 120 frames per second. My guess, looking at it, will probably be a little bit soft, but we are talking about video here. Now, Father Christmas, Grandfather Canon, whatever you want to call him, that was talking about how he's going to send his Canon 5D Mark IV back because he's got to transcode it. Well, back to the same subject. Get a real computer. Format your card correctly. Format the card exFAT, not FAT32. This is 2016. We can handle big files. So, exFAT, and you can put a single file on there, no problem. The JPEG, as it writes it out, will then write it out, wrap it as an MJPEG, and then give you an extension of .mov. Now, hold on. You know what's exciting? You can take that MOV and drop it straight onto the timeline. Yes, you heard me right. MOV straight to the timeline. No transcoding. Imagine. Now you have got the flexibility to actually edit this thing on your own iPad Pro and ship it out to the studio. And you can pick and choose the still shots that you want as well. Is the 1DX Mark II, is it a video camera? No. It's a fantastic photography camera that has a 4K recording facility in it. You want a video camera? Go buy a video camera, for God's sake. Don't fuck around. But if you want a photography camera that has got fantastic video so that you can intermix that into your workflow, the 1DX is the one for you. The 5D Mark IV is fantastic, but it's limited to 30 frames per second at 4K. For me, that's actually a showstopper because you really lose a lot of cinematic qualities by not being able to go from 30 to 60 frames per second. Now, let's look at some facts here. The MJPEG 30 minutes is going to be about 107 to 110 gigabytes. You own a 1DX, remember? You have money. You have a reason to be recording something. So you go, you buy yourself a CF card, a 256 gigabyte, and you put the label on there of who that 256 gigabyte card belongs to. You record your video, and that's your backup as well. You can copy it onto your computer, you can edit it, you can output it, but you know, don't think that you can reuse this card. You know, you're in big boys land here. You're in the Ferrari land, the Bentley land. Okay? Buy a card, factor that into the cost of that video project. When we talk about computers, we're talking about, you know, computers with like, let's say 32 gigabytes of internal RAM, an i7 processor, 3.4 gigahertz, an NVIDIA GTX 970 at a minimum, which is a games card, and it'd be much better to go and buy an NVIDIA Quadro 4000, which is a proper color calibrated commercial video card that works with Adobe CC, works with Final Cut. It's made for the job. It's a marriage with your camera. Why do you want to have a 1DX and then downgrade that 1DX with a gaming card? So, MJPEG, as I said earlier, it writes itself out as an MOV wrapper. So, do you need to transcode to 4K? No, you do not. The CF card, you're wanting a CF card, a USB 3.0, and a good quality USB card reader, something like a Lexar. And you'll use that Lexar card just as a disk drive. You proxy it to your timeline, bang, job done. No problem, no transcoding. Once you're finished doing whatever editing that you want to do, then you can output it H.264, H.265 and send it off, or you can just drop it on your timeline, output it, and be done. So you can do a 30-minute video, 5 minutes of editing, and be uploading it straight to YouTube. Remember, if you format the card, use an exFAT format. Okay, MPEG, what the fuck? Okay, one JPEG image, one frame. Yep, it's compressed, but there's three formats I want to think about. H.264, which is compressed, and it's got interframe. That means that every frame only records the changes of the previous frame. So it's needing to look forward and backwards and doing this compression. H.265, well, this is compressed, but it's very, very reliant on hardware to decompress it. It's fantastic. It does have some artifacting on it, but it's really, really good. But it's very, very hardware dependent. You compare that to the old-fashioned JPEG that Canon is using, or their MJPEG. The bloody thing can be ran on anything. Anything. Even old stuff, you can play it back on. You don't need a special piece of hardware. Fantastic. So, MJPEG has got a high bit rate, 500 megabits per second for one frame. That means artifacting goes away, the jello effect goes away. Yeah, it's fantastic. You know, it makes sense. Actually, Canon, their big mistake is not the MJPEG. It's not giving you some compressor to use. Their mistake is not being forthcoming and telling you that, hey, get real, guys. If you want to be a 1DX shooter, then go buy the hardware, go buy the memory cards to support this. The 1DX, the 5D Mark IV, you can take these cameras anywhere in the world and work on your video and shoot it straight out. You know, my Sony running video, I can't do that. I've got to take it back. I've got to copy it or proxy it onto my computer. Sure, it's compressed. You know, I can get a lot of video onto an SD card, but I don't have the power user approach that I do with the 5D or the 1DX. So this is just some ranting and some personal notes on here that I'm throwing out here, more for myself. And I'm going to be refining this and trying to decide that, you know, if I did go back and buy a Canon, would I buy a Canon? Would I invest more in Sony, you know, or pick up a 1DX? But, you know, whether it be a 1DX or a 5D, you know, the Mark IV and 1DX Mark II, it's all about workflow and the way you use it. If you're a photographer, you know, it's the thing is, you talk to someone and that you fall into two groups: photographer, the videographer. Very quickly, you could ask a couple questions and you decide, oh, he's a photographer. You know, he's closed. Boom, boom. He doesn't want to see anything, doesn't want to hear anything. The videographer, on the other hand, is open. He's willing to listen to things and test new things, because a videographer knows that everything's got to work together. You get it? Everything's got to work together. Now, that's where the 1DX, as a photography camera that you want to get some fantastic video, is absolutely, I think, going to be a really good choice. But if you're wanting it to be a video camera that takes photography, no, that's not the camera. So my conclusion is that if you want the Sony at the low end, you know, you got the A7S2, the A7R2, you got a video camera, you got a photography camera. Yep, they both can do jobs together, or the A6300, the A6500, it's fantastic. They're all mirrorless, but hey, heat problems, battery problems. But will I get rid of my Sony gear? No way, I love it. It works well. My slow motion Sony cinema camera, fantastic. But yeah, there's still a need for that robustness. And that robustness is something that Canon can offer. So I'm going to start working on refining this and my thoughts. And as I do that, then I'm going to start tying this thing together with more than just a rant and a rave and profanity. But recently I wanted to say, what the fuck, Canon, I never wanted to see you, think about you ever again. But now, having really re-reviewed Canon over the last 4 days, virtually non-stop, trying to get into why did they do things the way they did? Why did they use an old compressor like JPEG? Why? And now I can see a reason for it. It's universally usable. It works, and it works well. My God. So, let's see what happens next.